Well, let's get some analysis on that now. Sanja Bornman is an attorney at the Women's Legal Centre and she joins us from Cape Town. Ms. Bornman, afternoon to you and thank you for chatting to us. Is this going to make a difference?
The Women's Legal Centre is very happy about the reintroduction of these sexual offences courts, and we believe that these courts have great potential to reduce secondary victimisation of victims of sexual offences and also to improve conviction rates. And ultimately then, when the South African public can see that there is a court system in place that really does lead to convictions, this will improve the reporting rate around sexual offences, which is currently quite dismal.
Do you think there will be enough human resources to man these courts and to sustain what the minister was proposing there, having all sorts of services incorporated into those courts?
Well, today the minister released what is commonly known as the Matzo report. It is the Ministerial Advisory Task Team report, which looks at what exactly we will need to have these sexual offences courts and what exactly we will need to make them successful. And we're very impressed with the report, and we think that the recommendations, particularly around resources and infrastructure, as well as the costing exercises that have been done, really takes us a lot further in terms of getting these courts on the right track. And so if we can see the recommendations from the Matzo report being incorporated in the Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, which was already published on the 9th of July, then I think we're definitely on the right track to making sure that we have successful sexual offences courts in place that can really do a decent and quick job in terms of prosecuting perpetrators of sexual offences.
Financial resources are but one limitation. What else do you see as potential challenges going into the future?
I think we will see some challenges around human resources. There is a question of whether magistrates and presiding officers in general in these sexual offences courts should be specialised and remain in these courts, or whether they should rotate on a 6-monthly or yearly basis. And the Matzo report that we saw today coming out doesn't make a specific recommendation around this, but does certainly flag this as an issue that needs to be addressed in future.
Are there particular elements that we should be looking at, particularly when it comes to victims of sexual offence who are children?
I think we need to look very carefully at what we need when it comes to children. There are specific resources that every sexual offences court will need where we have a child that is a victim of a sexual offence. And we need to be very, very careful about what we put in place, and we need to ensure that the officials that are put in place are trained and have the relevant skills to be able to deal with the victims of sexual offences who are children, because they do have special needs. We also need to make sure that children who are accused of sexual offences are dealt with in terms of the Child Justice Act, which also has its own special requirements.
You spoke about the secondary victimization that victims often experience within the justice system. Give us a sense of some of the most common traits of this which you have been dealing with.
I think one of the most common forms of secondary victimization at a court level is a lack of preparation for court. And so, again, the Matzo report speaks to a particular resource that is needed for these courts in the form of court preparation officers. This is literally an officer that is trained in preparing victims and witnesses for what they will face in court and what will be expected of them. And where there is a lack of such kind of preparation, we see victims often feeling intimidated by the court setting, the fact that they are faced with the perpetrator, and they often don't know how to deal with the situation and find it incredibly traumatic to have to then testify about what happened to them in court.
Sanja, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. Sanja Bornman is with the Women's Legal Centre, joining us from Cape Town.
News that moves. eNCA.com.